Lord, I stand in your presence, broken before you, and my heart's desire is to love and adore you with all of my heart, with all of my soul, forever. Lord, I fall at your altar in sweet surrender, and I've never known mercy so tender. It's healing my heart, it's healing my soul forever. I bow down at your feet, I bow down at your feet, bow down and worship you, Jesus, my Savior, my King. I bow down at your feet, I bow down at your feet, bow down and worship you, Jesus, my Savior, my King. Lord, I stand in your presence, broken before you, and my heart's desire is to love and adore you with all of my heart, with all of my soul, forever. Lord, I fall at your altar in sweet surrender, and I've never known mercy so tender. It's healing my heart, it's healing my soul forever. I bow down at your feet, I bow down at your feet, bow down and worship you, Jesus, my Savior, my King. I bow down at your feet, I bow down at your feet, bow down and worship you, Jesus, my Savior, my King. Lord, I stand in your presence, broken before you, and my heart's desire is to love and adore you with all of my heart, with all of my soul, forever. Lord, I fall at your altar in sweet surrender, and I've never known mercy so tender. It's healing my heart, it's healing my soul forever. I bow down at your feet, I bow down at your feet.
All right, Proverbs. Proverbs, looking at some of these topics that Proverbs cover. And tonight, we want to talk about the fool. And there's so much here. And it's one of those we could do a couple of weeks on, like I kind of did on money, but we're not going to do that. But when you think of a foolish person or a fool, what comes to mind? Now, don't think of any names or say any names, okay? What comes to mind? You think about a fool, foolish. You'll still Leon steps out, yeah. Doesn't use good judgment, yeah. What else? Yeah.
My mom used to say, "Don't act a fool."
Don't.
Must have been just crazy.
Yeah. Well, let's think about foolish or a fool. Rebellious, yeah. Yeah.
First thing I thought of was a court jester because they always make that up so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
They do what they want to do.
They do what they want to do.
Some in control.
Mm-hmm.
They're more interested in getting their own way than in what God wants or what's right.
Yeah. Yeah. What else anything come to mind you think about the fool or foolish?
Well, they don't use any common sense.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah, it's absent from them. Yeah, and you guys hit on so many of these. I was just thinking, about the decisions, lack of common sense. They don't listen to others. They're not prepared. They are rash. They're impulsive. They think the rules don't apply to them. right? That they're above that. There's so many. There's kind of three words in Proverbs in that you see, and we're going to focus mostly on the middle one with a little bit on the scoffer. But so you've got the three words that are used. If you look at Proverbs 1 and verse 22, look at Proverbs 1:22. You kind of see these. Proverbs 1:22. How long will you who are simple? There's our word for fool. Love your simple ways. How long will mockers? There's our second word. Delight in mockeries, and fools hate knowledge is the third. So you have the simple, the naive. They're foolish, not because of, okay, they're not ignorant, they're not stupid. They lack experience. That's the issue here with them.
Well, and they don't listen to counsel.
Right, yeah, then that's going to be a part of that. They don't listen to the counsel, and so they it's an experiential. Many of parents of teenagers have said, how could my 14, 15, 16-year-old do that? They know better. It's not about knowledge. It's about experience. They haven't had the experience to really know, to mature them to know that you can't do that. That's going to be, and so they're simple. They're foolish, and so and then you've got the fool, which is kind of this general. This is the one who says, "I know better. I do what I want to do. The rules don't apply to me. I'm above that. This is not going to affect me." Right? Again, same thing. Whether you think about a teenager or someone else that says, it won't bother me. I won't get caught. I won't, yeah, Jed? Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, they think they know, and that they know better. And particularly with God, that that I'm not hurting anyone. It's my life. I just don't care. I don't want to do it. I do what I want to do. I mean, you think about these descriptions and again, some of these that we're going to get in a general nature that are going to cover these as well. And then the last one is the harshest. This is the scoffer, the scorner. This is I like how one commentator described the evangelistic atheist. It's not enough that, they're not content with other people believing. They want to try to scoff and put down the way of God, and that there is a God and the path of God and the teaching of God. They mock, they scoff, they laugh at. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. And he lives his life accordingly. And so you have these kind of three different words that will be used often to describe the fool. Now, we need to talk real quick about a passage in Matthew, because a lot of us, maybe you grew up, you just don't call someone an outright fool because of the words of Jesus. You ever kind of remember that? Or look at Matthew chapter 5. So let's talk real quick. Got to talk about this. Matthew chapter 5. You can call him everything else, just don't call him a fool, right? Because look what Jesus said in Matthew 5. And somebody get 21 and 22. Go ahead, Kathy.
Now, when Jesus had crossed over again by boat to the other side, a great multitude gathered to him, and he was by the sea. And behold, one of the rulers of the synagogue.
Are you in Matthew 5?
No, I'm in Mark 5.
Mark 5? Okay. It's a good passage, too. It's a good story. I like that.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Yeah, I'm in 5.
It's all right.
I just looked and checked it. But
Matthew 5, 21.
Okay. You heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not murder, and whoever murders shall be in danger shall be in danger of judgment, and whoever says to his brother Raca shall be in danger of the council, but whoever says you fool shall be in danger of hellfire.
Okay, now I could have had Kathy keep reading. This is also the section where he's going to say, if you remember that your brother has a sister has something against you, leave your gift at the altar. So it's a passage dealing with interpersonal relationships, how to deal with anger, how not to respond to that. And so you have to keep that context in mind here, that it can progressively lead to slander and eventually murder. I mean, that's through malicious hatred. And so he's going to say here that this is where it starts, in our heart and our words. And so when you are angry at your brother, be careful. And he uses the word raka here. This is this curse that you would say in anger. And he says here, is answerable to the court. And anyone who says, you fool, will be in danger of the fire of hell. That's what I was saying. Some of you know your Bibles grew up. You don't call someone a fool because Jesus said you go to hell if you do that. That's pretty powerful. I don't think he's saying the outright use of the word fool can never be used from our mouth and our lips. I think what he's saying is be very cautious how you use your word here. And so I think he's saying here, it's not that we can't say what the Bible says about sin and people who engage in things that are ungodly and foolish, but be careful about making personal judgments and condemnation on other people in this regard. Yeah, Matt?
Doesn't the word raka mean you're essentially pronouncing them useless or not really worth the effort?
Right, yeah. You're completely dismissing them and kind of dehumanizing them, and so absolutely. And so kind of using that kind of two-punch there, he's in these interpersonal relationships, don't use that language. Don't call someone, insult someone in this personal way of calling them a fool, to hurt them, to put them down. And so I don't think he's saying we can't use the term. I think he's saying be very cautious how you speak to people and in relationships. So I wanted to make sure we get Matthew 5 in there because that's always an interesting tidbit. All right, back to Proverbs now. I want to first look at some verses out of Proverbs 26. We're going to read it. I'm not going to say a lot. There's one particular verse that I think is the most familiar out of this section in Proverbs 26 that I think you'll be familiar with when you see it. Somebody get 1 through 5, Proverbs 26. Okay, Dolores, and then somebody get 6 through 12. Okay, Valora. Proverbs 26, 1 through 5, Dolores, and then Valora will get 6 through 12. Okay, Dolores. Okay, Valora.
He that sendeth a message by the hand of a fool cutteth off a feet and drinketh damage. The legs of the lame are not equal, so is a parable in the mouth of fools. As he that bindeth a stone in a sling, so is he that giveth honor to a fool. As a thorn goeth up into the hand of a drunkard, so is a parable in the mouth of fools. The great God that formed all things both rewardeth the fool and rewardeth transgressors. As a dog returneth to his vomit, so a fool returneth to his folly. And seest thou a man wise in his own conceit? There is more hope of a fool than of him.
Okay, so you have all these different contrasts with that he describes here. You know, did any of these kind of stand out to you or kind of make you think, oh, that's interesting, or this made me think of that, or did any of these kind of jump out at you? Any that as he describes? Yeah, Dolores.
Well, 4 and 5 seem somewhat contradictory.
Right.
Do not answer a fool according to his folly, lest you also be like him. Answer a fool as his folly deserves, lest he be wise in his own eyes.
Yeah, so it seems like, there could be competing instructions here, but, we have to, we'll go ahead and talk about it. The Proverbs are often, I want to use a word here, don't misunderstand. They are situational. Now, I'm not talking about situation ethics, okay, where the morality changes based on the circle. I'm not talking about that. But remember, these are general what? Truths. And they have to be applied in situations that call for them or sometimes don't call for them. And so we have to have wisdom to deal with that. And so it's okay not to have a what to a fool? A response. Not to answer. Matter of fact, you're more often than not better if you what? You don't. Why? You offer a counter, well thought out, well rational, based on truth and all of that. And what's the fool do with it? He'll scoff. He'll what? Yeah. Argue. Yeah. Yeah.
They think the longer they talk, the more likely they are to get you around to their way of thinking.
Yeah. You're not going to convince someone who is completely closed off and is laughing at, or, I mean, I've been in these conversations. I've been in with people spiritually where I'll start talking to them, and after a while, I'm like, look, if you're going to act this way, I'm not going to study, I'm not going to talk with you. If you want to be serious, and they'll, no, I'm serious. I was kind of poking at you, but I do have this question. And I'll say, no, I think I'm done with you. I've had to do that sometimes. More as they've got older. Now, early on, I jumped at it. But now as I've gotten older, I'm like, no. If you're going to ask a ridiculous, silly question with the premise and kind of be flippant about it, I think, well, I don't want to talk religion with you. Because what's going to happen? Nothing. Except I'm going to get what? I'm going to get real frustrated, angry. And then I'm not going to say and do something that's now going to hurt my witness. So it's best to say, I don't think we're going to have a good conversation here. And so there's wisdom in knowing not to give a response. But then he says what? So there is a situation that calls for, at times, a response. What might that be? How do you think that might be? How can we know the difference here? Use my analogy first. Here I am one-on-one with someone. Okay, yeah, they truly are ignorant. They truly are, parroting what they've just always heard, but they appear to have an element of. But let's stay on the track that they're still not serious. There's private, individual conversations that some fool may be espousing something, and then there's something that's more open and public. And when someone is openly being foolish with God's truth and God's word and morality and right from wrong, when there's witnesses, don't you think sometimes with wisdom it calls for a what? A response. Now, not that what I'm going to say is going to convince the fool what? That he's wrong. But buddy, you're making some statements that are not true. And there are people listening. And I've had those conversations with people where I'm pretty much thinking, I'm not talking to you anymore, I'm talking to the people right next to you. Because they may not be foolish. They may be open. It may be their dad or their mom or their grandpa that's scoffing, but I'm going to answer them, but I'm really not answering them, am I? Because now there's some people that are witnessing. And sometimes truth has to be what? Has to be defended. And so now the wisdom, knowing when to do that and everything. And so I think maybe at times that's what may be needed here is to, when we need to correct, because other people are kind of buying into it. But we need discernment. We need to know when to do that. And again, mostly we need to know when to say, have you ever used this phrase? I'm done with this conversation. Okay, let's all try it. I'm done with this conversation. We need to be saying that a lot, probably. Because, again, what happens when we don't, when we extend the conversation? And often we damage our what? Our witness. Because what do we end up saying and doing? Something foolish. The fool gets out of us a foolish response. Have you noticed that? One person said, you can't out-puke a buzzard. You're going to try to have a contest to, that's vivid, wasn't it? That'll stick with you. You're not going to remember anything else. You're going to go home. Robert said that about puking with the buzzard. Think about that. Think about that. You're not going to beat the buzzard, are you? In that contest. No, you're not. And yet, what do we try to do in the break room? What are we going to try to do in a couple of weeks at family Thanksgiving dinners? What are we going to try to do on Facebook? We're going to get involved in discussions with people who have no intention to want to hear the truth or what we're saying, and we're just going to work ourselves up and say and do something that we shouldn't. And we need to learn to say, I'm done with this conversation. I think I've said all I want to say, and I respectfully will exit stage left. And now they're going to, by the way, that's pride is going to keep us in the conversation because they're going to think we're what? You say you're a preacher. You don't want to debate? I tell you, I've had to kind of keep going. Where they're kind of, someone is enticing you, trying to get you to keep arguing with them. But again, answer not the fool, right? It's best.
You can always set it up for a different situation.
Sure.
That if you really want to have this conversation, why don't we do it Saturday morning, 10 o'clock in my office, and I'll be glad to
Yeah. I did a lot of that when I was younger. The older I'm getting, I'm kind of done with people that are that way, because I don't have time. I just don't anymore. I've just gotten older where I'm like, no, I'm sorry. You've lost that opportunity to have a conversation with me when you called me a whatever, a religious whatever. And so I think often it's best to learn to say, when you're showing yourself more willing to talk. So okay, we move here quickly. Let's get some of these characteristics here. We got to run through these here. I'm going to run out of. Look at these. A fool speaks ill of other people. Proverbs 10:18. Let's see if we can get a couple of these I want to hit on a little bit more than the others. Proverbs 10:18. Whoever conceals hatred with lying lips and spreads slander is a fool. And then Proverbs 14:9. Proverbs 14:9, if you'll flip over. Fools mock at making amends for sin, but goodwill is found among the godly, or among the upright. And so here is not to slander people, not to make fun of people, especially in the public arena. Social media. Let's think about it for a second. How much of that takes place in social media that is no good, where it is not a help, it's a hindrance, and so we need to be cautious how we act towards others. We need to not speak ill of other people and say, well, if you believe that, you're the biggest we got to be careful how we speak about others. The fool is the one who speaks ill of other people. And when we do that, it hurts our witness. People hear us and they don't hear love. They don't hear discernment. We don't never want to come across as an adult middle schooler. Adult middle schoolers, been around middle schoolers? Stephen, you're around middle schoolers, right? You put up with it because they're what? They're 12, 13, but it's not so fun when they're 30 and 40. And so be careful how we speak ill of others. Look here. Proverbs says the fool stirs up trouble. Someone read Proverbs 18, 6 and 7. Proverbs 18, 6 and 7. Who's got that for me? Okay, Dolores.
A fool's lips bring strife, and his mouth calls for blows. A fool's mouth is
Okay. You know, and the other Proverbs that Proverbs 10:19. Sin is not ended by multiplying words, but the prudent hold their tongues. And then Proverbs 29 and verse 11. Of course, a lot of these involve the tongue. It's kind of a different, kind of a larger subject. Proverbs 29:11. Um, fools give, look at this, fools give full vent to their rage, but the wise bring calm in the end. Uh, there is wisdom in keeping quiet, isn't there? There's wisdom in not answering. Uh, one writer described, even if you're not the smartest person in the room, but you keep your mouth quiet, you may be perceived to be the smartest person in the room. And I think that's pretty good.
29:20,
Do what?
29:20.
What's it say?
Do you see a man hasty in his words? There's more hope for a fool than for him.
Yeah. And so here the fool goes in and he just kind of destroys and causes chaos, and with his words stirs up anxiety, anger, trouble. He doesn't hold his tongue. And that kind of leads to the next one. Fools love to hear themselves talk. Someone get Proverbs 18:2. Proverbs 18:2. Who hadn't read for us? Okay, Ron. Proverbs 18:2.
A fool finds no pleasure in understanding, but delights in airing his own opinions.
Yeah. And then Proverbs 29:20 says, Proverbs 29:20, do you see someone who speaks in haste? There is more hope for a fool than for them. Um, the need to always express your opinion, right? That's a problem, isn't it, at times? For some of us, I mean, I'm a preacher, so I make my living expressing my opinion and talking, and so, but maybe for others, that's still a problem, where knowing when to hold your opinion, hold your viewpoint, inject yourself in the conversation, to step back and let others do the talking. And again, even if it's something that you don't agree with, or maybe something that was off a little bit, you're not going to inject yourself every time in every conversation. And so a fool, they just love to, get in every conversation. And so there's wisdom in knowing when not to do that. And so look at this next one. A fool is a know-it-all. Proverbs 28:26. Who's got that for me? 28:26. Who hadn't got to read over here? Okay, Sherry. Okay, and then Proverbs 12:15. Proverbs 12:15. From the fruit of their lips, people are filled with good things. Oh, I'm sorry, verse 15. The way of fools seems right to them, but the wise listen to advice. And then Proverbs 23:9. Proverbs 23:9. Do not speak to fools, for they will scorn your prudent words. One writer described, the fool knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. They know the price of everything, and they know the value of nothing. Now, it doesn't mean we can't express our opinions, our viewpoints. What do you think is the key here to being able to do that, or when to do it and when not to do it? What do you think is the key to expressing our opinions, injecting ourselves in conversations with point of views? I mean, what do you think is the difference, or when it's good, not good? And yes, there's times when we do answer a fool with truth, and absolutely, we're correcting their folly. They're especially if they're prudent or simple. But when can we know? What's the key to being able to know when I should inject my opinion? Right time and the right manner. What else is, what should be we examining in us before we speak and inject? Yeah, Dolores?
Properly grounded in the Word of God,
Mhm.
we're going to have discretion and discernment about what's right and what's wrong.
Right.
And when we have that and know without doubt that what we know is right, then we have a responsibility to speak up. But if all it's going to cause is argument,
Right.
not like you said, somebody that doesn't listen,
Right.
then you have to have enough discretion and discernment just to
Yeah.
walk away.
And I think for us, especially what I would think is number one, what's my motive? Why am I saying this? Again, we can easily deceive ourselves. Well, this is the truth. I'm speaking the truth. No, you're speaking for you, not for God. Well, it's the truth. You need to be baptized, Jeff just said. I can go around all day in Manford and walk up to people, probably other person. Have you been baptized? If you've not been baptized, you're law. I mean, I can speak the truth, can't I?
But it may not be in a way that will benefit them.
And what's my motive too?
Is it from love and caring, or are you just trying to hurt someone?
Yeah, am I trying to show that I'm right or hit someone up over the head with the Bible, so to speak? I mean, who's this about? Is it about me or about God? It's pride, yeah. And we can hide behind, well, I'm just saying the truth. So I just told somebody that they're going to hell, right? Because they're going to hell.
We always have to speak the truth in love.
That's right.
Love has to be.
Yeah. Is it profitable? Is it the right time? Is it the right place? Do I have the relationship? Will it be misunderstood? Will it make a difference? Yeah. And again, this takes wisdom, discernment. There's not an absolute every time we should know. It's not going to come to us. Just that's why we got to ask God to lead us and to guide us. But the fool he's a know-it-all. He injects himself in conversations and opinions, and it's not healthy. And even if we kind of veil it behind truth, that it's easy to do that.
Tell them the truth, able to back it up. It's not just our opinion, it's the Word of God. We have to be able to show them
Right.
that in the Bible.
Right.
If they don't believe it, that's on them. But we need to reach out to people and tell them.
Right. Absolutely.
Our responsibility as members of
Yeah.
this church.
Yeah. If our hearts are right, that's right. If our hearts aren't right, then again, that's kind of what we're talking about here is if it's not for God, but for us, that's probably a good indication that even if it is the truth I'm saying, it may not be the best time for me to speak. And so yeah, there's a lot of wisdom to know when to speak and when not to speak. But a fool kind of okay. Number 5, fools are easily upset. Look at Proverbs 12. Somebody get 12:16. Who's got that? Who hadn't got to read for us tonight? Like to read. Oh, did you want to read? Roy, did you want to read Proverbs 12:16? Yeah. He's not ready now. Early, okay. Matt's his brother's keeper there, so.
The fool's wrath is known at once, but a prudent man covers shame.
Okay, fools show their annoyance at once, but the prudent overlook an insult. Thought that was pretty good there. That's hard to do, real hard to do, but it's an attribute of someone who's living wisely and knowing maybe if it wasn't personal, maybe if the person didn't intend. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can kind of give someone the benefit of the doubt. They're having a bad day. They're upset. I mean, there's a lot of things that, Peter would say, love covers a multitude of sin, right? I mean, and so the fool immediately, is kind of controlled by his emotions and passions. And so, hear the wisdom of being able to harness that, to keep that kind of bound and not easily show that. Look at this one. Fools ignore instruction. This one's big. We've kind of mentioned this a couple of times. Proverbs 17:1. Proverbs 17:1. that's not what I wanted. No, it is. It is a good verse. Let's go to 18. 18:13. To answer before listening, that is folly and shame. And then Proverbs 10 and verse 8. Proverbs 10 and verse 8. The wise in heart accept commands, but a chattering fool comes to ruin. And so here's someone who ignores an instruction. And I think the key here is they they they're listening, but they're not listening. They're listening to try to answer back. They're not listening and really hearing what the other person is saying. They're forming a response or a counter argument. One of the things that I've done in premarital counseling and just regular general counseling with couples is active listening. And you do the what did they just say? Repeat back exactly what they said. If the person repeats it back and it's not what they said, then correct them and say, no, that's not what I said. And so it's so important that we listen actively to hear and not just to immediately respond or what our comeback will be. And so fools just ignore instruction. They don't listen to learn, and in that regard. And then look at this one, Proverbs 26:11. The fools don't learn from their mistakes. Proverbs 26:11. This one is, we read part of it earlier. Didn't talk about it. As a dog returns to its vomit, so fools what? We've all probably seen dogs that do that, and it's always pretty disgusting whenever it's happened, and I've seen it. And yet that is the visual picture that God wants us to see. That not that we're going to make mistakes, and we're going to make the same mistakes I know in our life as far as our tongue and our anger, and I understand that. Even wise people are going to have to learn from their mistakes, but they're growing, they're being consistent in what they're doing. And the fool simply never learns from his mistakes, the consequences, whatever it might be. He just keeps repeating and repeating and repeating. He doesn't, yes, go ahead. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. And so we're all learning from our mistakes, but the fool is repeating it because he's not growing. He's not assessing his mistakes. One of the things that's always helpful, and I appreciated when I had people around me, whether it was some jobs or that would kind of, when something would happen, we'd kind of do a how'd it go? How do you think it went? Did you ever have a boss who would do that, or someone who we worked with that would say, how do you think that meeting went? How do you think that project went? Or how do you think that? And they kind of, especially when we had a youth minister that I worked with, and he was a young man, and so sometimes things would happen, and events and meetings, and sometimes we'd have those conversations. How do you think that went? And I knew it didn't go well, and he knew it didn't go well, and he knew I knew it didn't go well, but we were trying to, what can we learn? And you can never perfectly prevent anything bad from happening, and mistakes can always happen, but what can we learn from what we did for next time? And that is a healthy thing, isn't it, in your work? Yeah, Dolores, in your life. Right. And even if it was primarily someone else's fault, there's still some ownership that says, I got to set that up better. I've got to be better how I explain and how I do that, so I don't give opportunities for, and so even when it is someone else's mostly their fault, we can still kind of take an account and say, I could have set that up better. I could have handled that better. And so the fool doesn't ever learn or grow from his or her mistakes. Yeah, go ahead. The same results. What, insanity? That's what they call, right? Keep doing the same thing and you expect different results. Yeah. 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 Right. Yeah. And it may be where it just takes time and years for someone to understand their mistakes. I mean, the prodigal son, how long was he gone? How, we don't know all the details, but it took a while. And sometimes it takes a while for people to fully get the weight of their actions and their consequences. Let me give you two quick questions. I didn't put them up on the screen, but I thought these were pretty good. I wanted to inject here. So here's two questions to ask ourselves. Is there something that you're currently loving or doing that you should reject? I think there's wisdom in that. That can separate the wise from the foolish. Is there something you're currently loving or doing that you should be rejecting? That's going to be a big determination on whether I'm being foolish or living wisely in God. And then the second question, are you rejecting something that you should be loving or doing? So it kind of flips it. Are you rejecting something that you should be loving and doing? And so I think those are two good questions. Am I doing and loving something that I should be rejecting? And am I rejecting something that I should be loving and accepting and doing? I think those are two good questions to think about. Am I being wise? Am I being foolish? Am I being open to others? Am I learning from my mistakes? Am I easily upset? Am I injecting myself? Whatever it might be, I think it can be a big help for us. And then I love last verse, Proverbs 13:20, so you get a bonus verse too. I didn't have time, I didn't know where to work this in, but this one's always a good one. Walk with the wise and become wise. The companion of fools suffers harm. And so let's surround ourselves with wise people who help us and not run with the fool. And all right, well, we will pick up there next time. You guys be safe.